Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our presentation. Let me share my screen with you and get us started here. I'm so excited to have you part of this presentation and this session. My name is Michael Fagans, and we're going to be talking about the difference between boys and girls and really hoping to help us just to really kind of step back and look at the big picture. So this presentation explores the unique ways of boys and girls learn, shedding light on the different factors in life that shape their educational experience. We'll discuss how teaching strategies can be tailored to meet the needs of each gender while fostering an inclusive and learning environment for everybody. And really just, I hope you gain some new classroom practices. I hope you gain some ways as an administrator that can help you with the role of stereotypes and how to support the students and everything that we're achieving here. So super excited about this topic. I'm going to be honest with you, this is a topic that really means a lot to me. It's something that, so looking at my years of education, I've been in education for 32 years. I started off at 6 years at middle school, high school in West Lafayette, just a great experience. And then wanted to be a head basketball coach and went to Rensselaer, Indiana for 10 years. And I was there for 10 years coaching. And then I stayed another 11 years as a middle school teacher, tech coach, and then really was helping with the PBIS celebration. And then I'm currently 5 years as an elementary assistant principal at Russville Elementary School. And I will be honest with you, when I was first started teaching, it was just kind of that blanket teaching. Everybody, we could start off, everybody was on the same page. You could press the buttons and everybody, responded well. And it was just a fantastic way just to have that experience as an educator. But the more I got into it, the more that I went from high school to middle school to elementary, I started noticing a huge difference between, the boys and girls and how, we can help them be successful in school. And I did a presentation like this back in probably about the 2006, 2007. No, I take that back. Probably about 2011, 2012 with a teacher at Rensselaer. And we really worked with our faculty on trying to really how to help the boys and the girls learn and be more successful. So one of the things I want to start off with is just talk to you about global trends. Globally, boys are about 3.5 percentage points more learning poor than girls, indicating a need for targeted interventions to address these different parts. And then the World Bank gender data even said understanding the differences is crucial for developing teaching strategies that cater to the unique needs of both boys and girls and promoting educational outcomes that are equal and equitable to really make them more successful. We can also look at the brain development, how boys and girls' brains develop at different rates in certain areas, the verbal skills, the reasoning, the physical body, the movement, the different things like that, and just how important it is. This isn't just universal, but it can really influence the different learning approaches. When we say physical, we're talking about height, we're talking about brain development, we're talking about strength, we're talking about different things like that that just could affect them academically, but also could affect them mentally too, just that different parts of that development. We look at the academic performance and just kind of where we look at the different parts. Literacy, normally girls consistently outperform boys in reading and writing across various age groups. For instance, the U.S. national test scores show that girls have met or exceeded boys' reading performance at all age levels. And then we look at the mathematics. The gender gap in mathematics varies by region and age, but in Italy, research involving over 13 million students found that boys outperform girls in mathematics, with the gap widening from second grade to eighth grade. And interesting to see that, I just remember growing up and, I loved math, and, some of my friends who were girls just like, oh, I hate math. And, when I look back at my education career as a student, some of my worst grades came in reading and writing, but some of my best, I almost became a math teacher just because I really loved that opportunity just to, learn math and figure that out. So I'm going to share just some of my personal data, over the 32 years in education. And a lot of this is, from experience. When I was teaching, I would have the after school detention. And one of the things that I noticed that boys are more likely to get in trouble than girls. And if I look at the stats and the different parts of that, the majority of the students that were staying in after school detention or ISS or out of school suspension were boys. The majority of the boys are getting the consequences. At our current school, we have what we call a life skills lunch. It's a lunch where like we focus on a life skill for the entire month. It's part of our PBIS. And the principal and I were laughing one day that when we did it, early in the fall, that the majority of the people who won that reward were girls. And it's like, okay, man, we really kind of got to step back and address like, what are our boys not doing, or how is this happening? And it's just one of those things that I just started really trying to focus and doing some research on. How can we help the boys be more successful? Why are they not being more successful in the classroom? Why are they the ones getting in more trouble? And so hopefully this presentation can really help you see those different points and really kind of help you to step back and say, okay, what do I need to do different in my classroom, or what do I need to do different in my school? How can I really truly, help our students be more successful? So one of the things, and this is changing every day, and the older I get, the more you're starting to see this. Boys and girls might process emotions differently or respond to peer interactions, and how these factors influence the classroom. And I grew up, and one of my friends, he would. He was one of those who, like, if you looked at him the wrong way, it was going to be the fight. But then the next day, they were best friends, and it was just laugh. Like, weren't you guys just mad at each other the day before? Yeah, but we're fine now. Where, some of the times the girls will, they might hold that peer interaction, that social grudge a little bit longer. And sometimes, even boys do too, but, the emotions are different. Sometimes a student might come in and, they made a mistake or a bad choice, and they're just crying, where another student comes in the same way, and they're just like, okay, so what's the consequence? And and we really got to look at that social and emotional development and just try to find a way to say, okay, how can we look at this and help these students process these emotions when we have different types of emotions in a classroom or in a school. This is one of those things that I grabbed this photo, and I just think it's so important. This is sometimes how our children feel, where they're that one person who's singled out. They're not part of that group. They feel like they're different. Their family's broken. They're struggling. They're not very good at reading. They're not very good at math. And, you've got the student who's like trying to figure out, how can I get through this gate, or what's this gate that's going to block me from seeing what I need to get through, or trying to get through that, or trying to process the skills to learn how to either one, see that bigger picture and what's behind it, or two, try to get through the gate or try to find a way to go around the gate. And I just thought this was just a great way just to, 2024, 2025, the last 32 years, you could just see our students changing, just a difference of how to deal with certain situations and how to really focus on being more successful. Here's another thing I want to really share with you, and I think this is a great, especially when we're talking about boys and girls, where they're spending most of their time online is over 60% of their time is online, where 13.86 is spending time with friends. I grew up, and I remember my friend and I would get on our bikes and we would just ride bikes for the day. We were all over the city, and we'd come home, eat dinner, then hang out. And now it's like, it's Snapchat, it's social media, it's video games, it's Xbox, it's different things like that, where we're constantly online instead of just that face-to-face playing. And I went on down and I added the coworkers and then the restaurant and family. And I feel like our adults are even more online than what they used to be, and where they used to spend more time with coworkers, a lot of them are spending time and they're staying at home, or family is becoming less time with the family, and it's more, hey, we're going to just grab some food and go, and we've got sports, we've got this, and where kids would rather go, hey, can I just go sit in my room and do these things? And I just think this really, does this surprise me? Not at all, just because I know, talking to our students, just how they are and where they're spending a lot of their time. So one of the things I just wanted to really show you some details, and some of this you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's obvious. But I think it's really important as we, focus on trying to figure out the steps coming up and the future that we have, is dropping out. Boys are more likely to drop out of high school than girls. Failing to graduate, boys are less likely to graduate from high school than girls. Repeating grades, boys are more likely to repeat grades than girls. And I think these three little stats, and we're going to talk about this, I think it's very important to see, like, why are the boys dropping out? Why are they not graduating from high school? Why are we, repeating grades? And a lot of times, I will get that student who comes in and, he is in trouble, and he's like, well, I'm just bored. Okay, why are you bored? Well, and I'm thinking, well, you're spending the majority of your time online or watching TV. It's a really easy way just to say I'm bored because I'm doing an assignment, or we're not doing a lot of hands-on. So I thought these were really three major points for us to understand. But then I also kind of did some more detailing, kind of looked into some stuff, and boys have lower GPAs than girls in nearly every point in their K through 12 career, and they're less likely to take advanced courses, where boys are less likely, they don't want to be challenged. They would rather just kind of get through. Less likely to be lifelong readers, less likely to enroll in college, and not learning while in schools. Boys are at a greater risk of not learning while in school. And I think that's really important. One of the schools I was at, we always talk about, man, 98% of our kids go to school there right after they graduate. And then I thought, man, what's the stats of how much of them are staying in the college to get that 4-year degree? And a lot of times, you talk to young boys, or you talk to boys in high school, their first thing is like, man, I just want to go get my job and start working in the workforce. Why do I want to learn more, sit in the classroom, and I could go do it? And I think that's something that's really important for us to really kind of focus on. If some of our men or boys are less likely to enroll in college, what do we need to do different to kind of help them out, to make them more successful, or to really have get them to understand the importance of college? Something to think about, and this is something that I really started focusing on in my education career. The older boys get, the more I realize that focusing on everything that could go wrong is not helpful. Starting off on a new day, new attitude. And I think it's so many times that a lot of times boys and even girls get that tag on their head, saying, oh, this person always gets in trouble. Oh, here comes that boy again. He's going to be in trouble. Or that boy can't sit down. Or, oh my goodness, they were playing rough on the playground. Or they can't sit still. And I think it's really important that we're not always trying to find out what they're doing wrong. It's not going to help them. We need to really truly focus on what can we do to make it more positive for them. Hey, great job, you sat down. Or, hey, I know you're struggling to sit down today. Can I give you an opportunity to go move somewhere or do something? And I think that's really important for us to see and to understand. So to kind of summarize everything, so when we really look at the common challenges boys face in school, the lower engagement in reading and writing activities, I think, is important. Behavior challenges and disciplinary actions, the lack of positive male role models in schools, struggles with emotional expression and mental health. So sorry about that. These are those 4 major points that I really want us to focus on as we enter this next part of the presentation, just that we really want to focus on how can we help these different parts? What can we do to help them? And I think these are huge challenges that will help even not just our boys, but our girls too. So the first thing we want to talk about is that social expectations. This is going to really kind of help us to look at our school and how we can really start trying to figure out different parts with that. And even help them be able to learn and to be able to challenge themselves. The first one with boys, friendships often are around shared activities. And then group projects involving competition can be motivating. A couple examples with that. I had a friend, like when it was, I played basketball in high school, and when it was during basketball season, he didn't play basketball. We never talked. I always hung out with, my friends who were in basketball, but him and I played tennis, and we were always hanging out together. And then summer and fall, we were, we were always friends, but he knew during basketball season I was going to hang out with my teammates, and I knew during basketball season he was going to be really focusing on his grades. And I thought this was just such a great dynamic for us to really see, like, how can we help when our kids are struggling, or you have that young man who's struggling, he doesn't have a friend, he's not very good at sports, he's not very good at being things. How can we help them really kind of come together? Like, how can we help them find shared activities? How can we help them find shared interest? So looking at group projects, it's amazing. When we do group projects, if there's a little competition, the boys are really stepping up. They want to get it done. They're going to do the best they can. They're really focusing on, how can I make this more successful, and how can I'm really going to step it up. And when we look at girls, the girls' relationships are often built on communication and emotional connection. They like to collaborate projects, and more involved discussion can be effective. You've got with girls, a lot of time it's that communication. They like to talk, they like to really connect emotionally. And I really think that's such a great thing. It's like, okay, how we've got this, this boy and this girl, how can we bring them together to make sure the projects are better? We can add a little competition, but we also have to involve some discussion to really help them be a lot more focused and be able to be more successful. So the next part is kind of really addressing the stereotypes. And, I know this is kind of a, touchy subjects a lot of times, but, I think it's still something very important, especially in younger grades, middle school, and even high school, trying to find strategies to counteract these pressures, really working with the students, really working with the educators, really working in your schools. I just remember growing up, and, oh, boys don't cry, and, or we're going to have a STEM project, and the majority of them are boys. And I think it's very important that we really look at trying to encourage boys to truly share their feelings. A lot of times, when if a student's in trouble and they're coming to my office, and I want to really ask them, how do you think that made that person feel? How do you make, how does this make you feel? And really kind of help the boy to step back and look at that. But then I think it's also very important to do that with the girls too. Hey, you made that person feel this way, and how does that how can you help them with that? And to really encourage both the boys and girls, but especially the girls to pursue the STEM and to really pursue that. Our school has become a STEM school, and one of the things that's been really exciting is we've been doing so many projects in the classrooms that the boys and girls are both participating in. And I think that is such a great has been a great success for our students. I really appreciated this quote, and I kind of wanted to take away a step away. And teaching kids to count is fine, but teaching them what counts is best. And I truly love this quote, just because I think it's very important for us to step back and to say, okay, we're always so worried about those test scores. We're always so worried about, did this student do this or this? But we really need to step back and really focus on, teaching them what counts as best, teaching them what is important, teaching them those social skills, really focusing on, helping them learn to be better citizens, instead of just like, hey, I could count to 10 and I'm great. I check that off, and really trying to teach them, what counts is best, and what's important in life. So now, kind of going with our stereotypes that we are talking about, we really want to encourage a growth mindset. And I think this is so, so, so important. We really need to step away from avoid reinforcing stereotypes. Boys are bad at reading, girls are bad at math. Really encourage, the boys, to really support that student who's struggling in those subjects, to really encourage, like, hey, I know you're struggling in reading right now, but let's get you this extra help. That's just not because you're a boy, it's just where you're at right now. Or, if you're a girl, you're not very good at math. No, that's not the case. You just don't have those skills, whether you're a boy or girl. We really need to just focus on those strategies to help support those students, in those subjects due to their individual needs. And I think this is so important that we really focus on that growth mindset. I see it so many times, like, oh, those boys are always getting in trouble. No, we don't want to say those boys are always getting in trouble. It's, we need to work with these young men and really focus on how can we help build that growth mindset instead of just always, relying on saying, oh, it's that type of person. So growth mindset skill, I really love this. And this is something I've been really researching on. And, over the years, you always hear, oh, the growth mindset. And sometimes, some people are like, oh, we overdo it. But I really feel like it's very important that we really step back and look at our classroom, look at our schools and say, okay, do the boys feel welcome and valued? Do the girls feel welcome and valued? Their energy, their interests, are they welcome? And there's a great book out there called Playful Boys Are Not Viewed as Troublemakers, but just as curious and enthusiastic, that just, we have to understand, man, this boy's excited. I remember one of my friends, when his son was 4, we went to a birthday party and his brother, and every gift he opened, he was like, yes, 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 this is so exciting. I love this. I love this. And, it was like, where we could have been very easy to say, oh, sorry, don't get so excited. It's not your present. But he was just so excited for that. The second thing, I'm sorry, I messed up earlier. I said this book. I said, I love this quote, playful boys are not viewed as troublemakers. And I just think it's so great and to think about that and to really kind of focus on that. Teachers and administrators understand male development, that they know boys mature more slowly, the physically, and what we talked about earlier, than girls, so that they're not over concerned that a 4-year-old struggles to print his name or a 5-year-old boy struggles with reading. They provide that encouragement and support. And, and I think that's so important. We as educators is we got to look at the, the boys and the girls and say, okay, they're at this point. If we look at all the data around the world and around the United States, this is a normal 4-year-old boy who's struggling to print his name. But if we keep encouraging him and showing support, we're going to get that boy to be able to print his name. Or that 5-year-old boy who's really struggling with reading, we can't just say, oh, it's a boy thing. We really got to focus on how we can help that boy to really dive into that. Look at the data, look at the, okay, why are they struggling with reading? What can we do to go back to the basic skills to help them? I always think about when I was coaching basketball, if I had a kid who couldn't dribble, well, I just didn't have them shoot 100 shots. We were doing ball handling drills to help them encourage that, to build those skills, to build that foundation. And then going back to that growth mindset, it's just really providing encouragement and really providing support for them. And I think really movement is a regular part of the school day. Kids of all ages have recess. Recess isn't ever taken away as a punishment. Classrooms include movement too. But I will be honest with you, there are days that we take away recess. But one of the things that we've started adding, and I think it's been super successful, is that, instead of a student, who had a consequence and they lost their recess, they're coming to the office and sitting at a desk. We have them out on the recess and they're walking the line or they're standing on the line and they're moving during that time. So, because a lot of times those kids need that extra movement. They need to have that time. There's a couple of people like, man, just taking away their recess isn't the best thing for that. But then also, though, I really believe that sometimes that consequence is the best way for that student to understand, hey, for me to change my attitude, for me to change my behavior, they took away my recess. I miss that recess. I want that. And so we really got to, look at that. And I know it says isn't ever, but I'm saying, it is, because we got to look at that as part of, they got to still be able to move. And so, it might be a 10-minute part of taking away the recess instead of the entire recess. And then classroom lessons include movement too. And I think that's so important. We have a few young men and even young women in our school that, they have cool-off passes. And one of the reasons they have a cool-off pass is the teacher will give them a book and an envelope, and they're walking into my office and they're just giving that little break of just outside the classroom. They're moving their legs, they're going down the hall, they're doing that little movement. Or, I know our school has a sensory walk. There's schools that have minds and motions, which our school has too. And that's just getting those students to be able to move during that regular school day. And I think that's so, so important. And then I think this is huge. Students of all ages have daily breaks, more than one. Allow for free time, allow for movement, allow socialization, recess and lunchtime. Allow and encourage free play and stuff. And it's really interesting. My first, even all my years of education, I would go into a cafeteria, or I'd have supervision in the cafeteria, and oh my goodness, they're too loud. I'm like, now wait a minute. This is the only time that they get to socialize. This is the only time that they're really allowed to talk, and or recess is like, okay, hey, we're not going to allow them to do this. No, this is their free play, and we really need to encourage that. And I'm really enjoying. I'll walk into a classroom and I see the teachers giving our students brain breaks, or they're going to all walk to the bathroom together, and they get that opportunity just to get outside the classroom and do that. And I think that's so important. Students are given the opportunity and assistance to reflect on and repair mistakes, including social and behavior infractions. Educators and administrators work to understand the root causes of kids' behaviors, help kids develop emotional and coping skills. The school may use restorative justice approach to resolve conflicts. That's one of the biggest things that I've really changed in the last 5 years of my education philosophy is, and I shouldn't say just the last 5 years. I've noticed that I've changed it, the last probably 15 or 20 years, but especially the last 5 years, just especially because I'm, working a lot with discipline and everything with that. One of the things that you really see is students don't come to school to get in trouble. That's their number one thing is, I don't want to come to school and I don't want to get in trouble. And a lot of times they'd rather hide instead of get in trouble. But if we're truly trying to find out what's wrong with that behavior, how is that student getting in trouble? What can we do to help that student? Then we're going to start learning, okay, this student's getting in trouble because of these emotional or coping skills aren't there. So how can we really do that and really start working on trying to build that back? There's a lot of times if I have a student who has a conflict with another student, I'm really focusing on helping that student build that relationship, making sure they write an apology, making sure they're talking to students that person they had a conflict with, and then hands-on real world learning experience. I think this is huge, and I really think this is so important that we teach students how to use their whole bodies when learning, and they work on projects that can be relevant to their interests and lives. I had a student that their number one goal was, Mr. Fingers, I wanted to be a truck driver. That was my number one thing. I want to be a truck driver. So, I knew that's what he wanted to do. His dad was one. And I just think it's so important that, they really are focusing on that. And I think we can take those opportunities and, have assignments. Hey, I want you to read a book. Here's a book about trucks, or here's a book about, whatever. And I think that's so important for us to do. So I like to call this what I call a high five for boys. And this is just little key factors for success. Number one is engagement, doing hands-on active learning approaches, different things like that. If we're studying a social studies project, hey, I want you to create this fort. I want you to create this cabinet, having them use a lot of hands-on. One of the things I've seen a lot of success is support, mentorship, and positive role models. We mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of role models, male role models in the schools at younger grades or even middle school. And how can we really find those, positive role models? Can we reach out to different organizations or churches to find those role models to come in and just be mentors for some of these kids? It was a huge eye opener for me that we had a young man who was struggling in school, and he wasn't turning in his homework, and the teachers were super upset with him, and they were frustrated. And finally, I sat down with him and said, buddy, what's going on? He says, Mr. Fagans, I don't have time to do my homework. And I was kind of like, yeah, you do. Come on, we could get this done. And he was like, no, I wake up, I get my brother out of bed, mom and dad are at work, I get home from school, I've got to put them, mom and dad's working 2 jobs, I got to feed them, I got to take care of them. I'm basically his role model or his parent. And I was like, oh my goodness. So him and I started working together, and I really, mentored him and just said, okay, buddy, how can I help you? And we found times for him to do his homework during school. We found times to get him some of that extra help at home, and had a great conversation with his parents, and they really appreciated that. Environment, creating a safe space for emotional expression. I think that's so important that, that we can sit down. And one of the big things we're really focusing on this year at our school is having that teacher build that relationship where they're not always just coming to the office, that the teacher, giving the teacher the opportunity. I might cover a teacher's class for 5 minutes so she could talk to that young man or young woman to just, to work through their issues so they can kind of have that emotional connection, and then skills development. And I think this is so important. And I hate to say it this way, but I feel like, when I was younger, parents were so involved in schools and so involved in being parents that today's, society, they're just not teaching those social skills like we used to. And I think that's why we're starting to see so many schools doing this social and emotional learning, and then just, fostering this, self-regulation, teaching them how to get through different situations and working through them instead of just expecting, well, you should know this. You're a 7-year-old or you're a 14-year-old, and really working with our young boys to teach them that success. So then I like to even go the high five for girls to be more successful. And here's some, key factors for success. And one of those is that foster confidence and leadership. I think it's so important, you know, um, to teach our young ladies to be leaders in the school, to be leaders in the classroom, to be leaders in that group projects, because I think that's so important that sometimes they just want to, sometimes girls are, might be a little more shy than boys and not willing to step up, and but really building that confidence into them and letting them know that they can do it. Encouraging self-expression, create opportunities for girls to express their ideals in discussions, projects, and presentations. Really work with them on that. Provide role models too. Expose girls to female leaders, professionals, mentors to help them, be successful. And I think that's such a huge thing. At our school, we have coach kids, and I think it's great because our high school kids will work with our elementary kids and just really give them that that mentor that will really help them be more successful. And then promote leadership roles, encouraging them to participate in clubs, student government, and leadership programs, or even, encourage them to be the line leader, to be the person who, different leadership roles or responsibilities in the classroom. So I really like those high fives for the boys and girls that, that can really help us just to reach both of them and to really make a more successful school. So I'd like to turn now to some strategies for our teachers and men. Incorporate active and experimental learning methods. The day of, I always call them the college professor lecture, where you stand behind the podium and you lecture for the entire hour. I think in today's society, with our students and how they are, we need to start having more active and more learning methods, getting them to be able to move more, to walk around the room, or, hey, you need to turn in that piece of paper after you get the first 5 problems done, just to give that done. And I'll never forget that what opened my eyes was when my son was in middle school, and we were watching a movie together, and he had his cell phone. He was on his cell phone. He was doing like that, watching the movie, and he was doing something else. I was like, buddy, I thought we were watching a movie. He goes, oh, I am, Dad. This is what just happened. And that's where our kids are today, that they can do so much so fast that we really need to incorporate that activity, that active and that experimental learning methods, and also encourage reading through interest-based material. I think that's so important that we don't just always say, hey, I've always done this novel. We've always done this novel, but now I want to find something that interests somebody. It might be, man, this kid loves basketball and he's struggling reading. I want to find a basketball book for him. Or he loves football. I want to find a football book for him. Or this might be a kid who loves camping. I'm going to do that. Or a girl who loves STEM projects. I'm going to find those, material that really interests them. And then this one, I'm a huge believer on. Use positive reinforcement restorative practices. We encourage, hey, great job, but you stayed in your seat for 10 minutes. Well, that's expected. Yeah, you're right, it's expected, but we need to really focus on reinforcing that positive. And so many times that our students just, they feel like they can't do anything wrong. So we really have to reinforce that positive, and we really have to teach them how to do some of those little things to help them with that. And then recognize and address different learning styles. I remember one of my college classes when I was getting my master's, we had to answer questions, and we found out who was learning at different levels, like who was a visual learning, who's an audio learning. And we really done that. And, I think we really need to sometimes get away from always just doing those large group lectures. We need to do the small group. We need to do the one-on-one. We need to do the learning that is more this and that, and to try to really differentiate our learning styles just to help our students be more successful. Teacher interaction, as administrators or as teachers, we really need to focus on this. And this is something I've really noticed over the years, but when I was doing my research for this presentation, I think this is huge. Boys may benefit from clear, direct instructions and structured environments, where girls might respond to supportive relationship-focused teaching approaches. And I think this is so important. And I always call this you moved my cheese. There's a book out there, when the mouse, you move the cheese of the mouse, he couldn't find it. And I think so many times some of our boys struggle because this is our normal classroom schedule, or this is our normal school day. And then all of a sudden we had a 2-hour delay, or all of a sudden we had this happen. And then everything just all of a sudden changed, and now they're getting into trouble. Now their whole thing's down. Instead of us having that clear, direct instructions, hey, this is how it's going to be, or giving them a heads up, hey, this is going to move. And then we look at our girls, they might respond to more supportive relationship focus. I've noticed the girls who have that relationship with their teacher, who feels comfortable with their teacher, they're really going to blossom when they know that teacher cares about them, when they know that they're willing to go out of their way to really make things better for it. And then this is talking about that building that emotional intelligence. Benefits of teaching boys to recognize and manage the emotions, activities for developing empathy and self-awareness, and even the roles of teachers, counselors, and parents really fostering that emotional growth. And I remember hearing so many times, oh, boys don't cry. You shouldn't cry because you're a man, or you're going to be a man. And then all of a sudden it switched. Well, it's okay for you to cry. And I think it's very important that we teach our young men and even our girls that they should be able to show the emotions when they need to show the emotions, and be there for them. And I'll have a student come to my office and they're really struggling, and I'm talking to them like, buddy, what's wrong? And finally they sit down and they just start crying. Hey, my mom and dad are fighting, and I feel like it's always my fault. And just being able to really work on them to get to that part of sharing those emotions. Another key factor is building that supportive environment, safe places for students to learn, giving them the opportunity just to, hey, you might have a young man who needs to stand up. You need those classrooms where the girls feel valued and heard and respected, and the boys feel like they can, even move. The peer networks encourage strong, positive relationship among the peers. We've talked about that a lot. And really teacher awareness, training our educators to be mindful of the different gender biases, but also to promote equal opportunities. Not to always say, okay, hey, we're having a math club, and it's, we're looking for boys. No, it's everybody gets that equal opportunities. And I know that doesn't happen very often, but I think we as educators can encourage our boys and encourage our girls to really try to be mindful and trying to encourage them to be involved in different projects like that. We've talked a lot about this before, and I just want to reinforce it, really finding activities to meet the diverse needs of both boys and girls. It's always funny, at our schools, we'll have boys who might get in trouble during art. Well, they're getting in trouble in art or music because it's something they're not interested, but they never get in trouble in PE. Where some of the girls might try to do anything they can to avoid PE because that's just not their thing. But looking at that, we need to really use a mixed part of our teaching methods, including visual, auditory, and just those types of approaches, just to help our kids to be more successful and to really find ways to reach each student. Every student's different. Classroom strategies, really stepping into this, behavior management. Boys may exhibit higher levels of physical activity while girls may display quieter. I know a lot of our boys, they like to talk, they like to be moved, they like to that classroom, and sometimes we got to just talk to them and be like, okay, I want you to come, and you might need that few minutes of just to talk loud, or that physical activity to walk to the class, to the office. Feedback and encouragement. We've talked about this so much, but boys may respond well to clear, direct feedback, where girls might need benefit from encouragement and really efforts and over that. And then again, just going back to that, boys often prefer action-oriented text, where girls lean towards character-driven stories. And then that's going back to that relationship and the boys finding that interest as something for them to suit their needs. I love this quote: every child is gifted. They just unwrap their packages at different times. And I think that's so important as to remember when we look at our students. As we're coming to an end of our presentation, one of the things I think it's so important is celebrating high fives. Highlight the boys' unique strengths, such as creativity, leadership, and teamwork. And that should even be with our girls. Encourage recognition, celebration of achievements, promote that growth mindset to overcome challenges. And I think I've heard it before that people would rather be recognized instead of earning a prize or something. And then I think it's very important as we really focus on this is encourage the strategies for parents. We never always think about that. It's always, what can we do in our schools? But I think it's important for strategy for parents too, is to promote that consistent routine for homework and study. Encourage open communication about feelings and challenges. Support extracurricular activities that build confidence. Model lifelong learning and problem solving. And I think these are so important for us to really focus on to help our parents. There's so many times where I see a kid on the court and they're looking around and they don't see their parent, and you can just tell it just takes away that. But also encourage that communication with the parents. And there's a lot of times I'll call parents and just say, hey, I just want to let you know your son or daughter is struggling with this, and let them know to help them with that. Lastly, it's the time for us to call to action. Collaborate with schools, parents, and communities to support boys. Provide resources and opportunities tailored to their needs. Commit a supportive and inclusive environment for all students. And I say that, again, a lot of this presentation was on boys because the majority of the time they're the ones who are getting in trouble. And so that's why I really wanted to focus a lot of this presentation on what can we do to help our boys. Again, if I brought out the stats and showed you, 9 out of every 10 of this is happening, or most of our problems are happening here, and most of those problems are happening because our young men just do not know how to make better choices on recess. And then as we continue to do this, keep using data to inform the different changing and teaching strategy. How can we benefit all students and adjust accordingly? If I find something that's really working well with our students, we're really focusing on our level 1, level 2 behaviors at school, and we're really keeping track of our data. Is this really helping us? Or we're really trying to get our teachers to build more relationships with our students instead of, oh, this kid just did this, I sent him to the office, and really focusing on that data to see how we can help them to be more successful. And like I said, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, just because, you boys and girls are different. And it's not that you've got to treat boys one way and girls one way, but you truly got to see that in our society where we're at, the importance of meeting every student at their needs, at their personal needs. How can we really address them in their personal needs to really make them more successful? One of my favorite things is, when I first started teaching, I was teaching typewriting, if anybody remember what typewriters were. And it was very simple. Everybody got to type this. You put your fingers on the home row. This is how we did this. Well, then all of a sudden, as time went on, I started teaching computers. Well, it wasn't very easy for me just to say, okay, hey, we're learning Excel or Microsoft Word, or we're building a website, because some kids would just jump right in and they were creative and they were changing it. I had to adjust to that, where I learned, sometimes it was the best assignments that I had was like, okay, class, here's this new website. I want you to go to that website and I want you to tell me what you like about it, what you don't like about it, or here's coding. How can we do that? And that started changing our thinking and really opening our eyes to better strategies to help our students. And like I said, when we look back at this and really focus on the importance of helping our students, but more important, just really working on being the best educator that we can be. How can we truly reach out to our students and really make them the best possible student that they can. And then I also think it's our challenge to how can we make ourselves as administrators or teachers to be the best educator we can be, trying to reach that need, trying to find that little part that can really help that student be the best possible student that they can be. I really appreciate your time and I hope you got something out of it. Like I said, this is one of my favorite subjects to really talk about is just, trying to find ways to help our students emotionally to really reach to become that best possible students that they can be. You have a great day and I appreciate everything that you guys for being on here. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, email me, and